to Chrissy's Books. I am Chrissy. Thank you for tuning in to my book review this week. So for this week, I have a really beautiful book, and it is 50 Words for Rain by Asha Lemmie. I had first seen this book over Instagram, I think, sometime last year. And I remember thinking how pretty this book cover is. I really liked the gray with the pink blush, and it just looked like one of those books that was going to be like an epic story. And also it's a Good Morning America pick for their September book from last year. So it was published in September 2020. And it's also a New York Times bestseller. So, you know, it's pretty much a win-win, and I had to read it. So I'd love to give a huge thanks to Dutton Books for sending me a print copy of this beautiful book. So for the month of March, I am reading books by only women because it is Women's History Month. And also I've had it on my shelf for a while, and it just kind of felt like the time to read it. So let's get into 50 Words for Rain and what it's all about. The setting is Kyoto, Japan, as well as Tokyo, Paris, and London. It's 1948, and I'm just going to read a little quote that was in the back of the book. If a woman knows nothing else, she should know how to be silent. Do not question, do not fight, do not resist. This is 8-year-old Noriko, or Nori as she's known in the book, her first lesson. Nori doesn't question why her mother abandoned her with only these final words. She will not fight her confinement to the attic of her grandparents' imperial estate, and she will not resist the scalding medical baths she receives each day to lighten her shameful skin. Nori is an outsider from birth. She is an illegitimate child of a Japanese aristocrat and her African-American GI lover. Even though Nori's grandparents take her in, they only do so to conceal and hide her in fear of her stain on the royal pedigree that they are desperate to uphold in a changing Japan. Obedient as ever, Nori accepts her solitary life with very little complaints despite her natural curiosity for the world outside her four walls. Soon after, we'll meet Akira, who's next in line for the inheritance of the estate. Akira is Nori's legitimate older half-brother, and soon after his arrival, Nori finds that Akira is the only person who has ever allowed her to question anything, and the siblings form an unlikely but powerful bond. A bond their formidable grandparents will not allow, and that will irrevocably change the lives they were always meant to lead. Now that Nori has glimpsed a world in which there may be a place for her, she is now ready to fight and be a part of it. And this battle just might cost her everything. Spanning many, many decades and continents, 50 Words for Rain is a dazzling story about the ties that bind, ties that give you strength, and what it means to be free. So that is what 50 Words for Rain is all about. Stay tuned. When I come back, I'm going to give you my review, I'm going to give you my rating for this book, and I'm going to give you my song pick for 50 Words for Rain. Welcome back. Thank you so much for staying tuned. So let's jump into my review for 50 Words for Rain by Asha Lemmie. It's a beautiful book. So this book definitely lives up to the cover and the title. What an epic roller coaster and an emotional read that we are taken on with this incredible debut by Asha Lemmie. So from the very first page, you are completely gripped into Nori's story and the journey that Lemmie takes us on. There are a lot of themes going on in this book, and I'd like to talk about the actual title of the book, 50 Words for Rain. I thought it was a really beautiful title, and also I read somewhere, I can't remember where, something that the author had mentioned that. And she says, in Japan, there's an idiom that there are 50 words to describe rain because it just rains so much in Japan. So I personally thought that the title of this book was really interesting because it also fits in with the many themes that go on in this book. So yeah, I love the title of this read. 50 Words for Rain is definitely one of those proper epic stories. If you're into big stories, then you're gonna like this book. It's a coming of age story and it spans many, many, many decades, as I said in the description of the book. And it's mostly set in Kyoto, Japan. I really love the setting of this book. She really paints a very pretty picture with the many settings in this book, because it's not just Kyoto, it's Tokyo, London, it's Paris. So yeah, the setting of this book was really great. I really like that Lemmie chose to set the book in a post-World War II in Japan, especially from the Japanese perspectives, which you don't really get to hear a lot about. That's kind of the first time I've read a book that was based in that specific time period and telling a story from the Japanese perspectives. So that was really cool. And if you really liked the book The Mountains Sing, by Nguyen, Phan, then you're gonna love this book. Both books are quite similar. They both span many, many decades. They both center around family. They're both coming of age stories. It's just like there's a lot of similarities in both books, but very, very different, obviously, different cultures and different wars as well. So yeah, just a little point that I wanted to say about the two books. Even though this book was quite a big book, I mean, I don't know if you can see that, but it is a big book. It's something like 400 and like something pages, I don't know, 50 pages or something, can't remember. Even though it's a really massive book, it's very easy to read. It's very gripping. You can fly through this book. Like, you can read this big book in about 2 or 3 days. It's not like a dense or intense type of writing style. The writing style is very simple. It's a very gripping read, and I really liked that about this book. Let's talk about the characters in this book. So we have Nori, who is basically an unwanted biracial child, and we grow up with her from a very young age when she's abandoned by her mom to her grandparents' house, and we follow her from childhood up until adulthood. So it is a full like 360, you know, type of story. Nori was a very interesting character. Like, I don't know if she's very likable. I kind of found her a little bit frustrating, that's just me, but you do understand why she is the way she is and why her character is the way she is. I mean, this girl struggles. I mean, she's been through a lot in this book. I'm not gonna tell you, but you have to read it. But yeah, she is just the amount of hardships that she goes through. And I just really loved the moment that they introduced Akira into this book. So that's her half brother. Akira was a really like solid, very dependable young man. I really liked Akira. I think he was my favorite character. So I really did like the character development in this book. You definitely get a 360 of all the characters, and not many of them. But yeah, it was just a wonderful character-driven book as well. So now for the slight negatives for 50 Words for Rain. I will say that part of this book, or parts of this book, really felt like you were watching a soap opera. It was very, very dramatic, very sweeping at times, and almost a little bit corny. I think some people who don't like very dramatic soap opera style books will not like this book. This is one of those books that people will either really, really, really love, and because it's so epic. It's an epic story, and a lot happens in it. It's a coming of age story. And then you're gonna have people who are just gonna be rolling their eyes like to the back of their heads and being like, oh my god. So I think this is one of those reads that will get like a complete mix of 50-50. And I will say that if you like family sagas, if you like drama, if you like epic reads, if you loved The Mountains Sing by Nguyen, Phan, I'll post a picture somewhere, you're gonna love this book. But if you're not a massive fan of sort of like heavy, dramatic, you know, kind of corny, cheesy type of stories, then I don't know if you're gonna like it. But you know, that's what I'm going to say about that's the only sort of negative I'd say about this book. So with all that said, let's get into my rating for 50 Words for Rain. So I gave this book a rating of 8 out of 10. Yeah, so for me, this was a great read. I enjoyed reading it. It was a solid book. The writing was just super, super easy to read, very grippable. The story had substance, and it was a very enjoyable read, and I would definitely recommend it to people who like massive coming of age stories, massive epic, like an epic story. If you liked it, then you're gonna like this book. 8 out of 10. And if I could describe 50 Words for Rain with 4 words, they would be melancholic. And that is because this story was sad, it was quite pensive, it was a tragic story. I mean, a lot happens in this book and it was quite upsetting. So yeah, melancholic. Second word is panoramic, and that is because this book spans many, many, many decades. You definitely get a 360 of all the characters. A lot happens in this book. It's a massive coming of age story. I think I've said that already. But yeah, it's just like an epic panoramic book. The third word is heartbreaking, and that is because it's a very tearful, sad, heart-wrenching read. It's very dramatic. It's like, oh my god, you know, it's very heartbreaking in that sort of like soap opera-y way. And the fourth word is bold. And that is because, oh, so many things. I'm reading my little list. It's a very ambitious storyline. I thought that Asha Lemmie writing a story based in Japan after World War II from the Japanese perspective was quite a bold story to tell. It was also very dazzling, and that is because of all the sort of richness that happens in this book. The family is very wealthy. It's all about all the beautiful kimonos. Really liked that aspect of the book. It's very like dazzling and like glittery. Also, the setting of the book as well was really interesting. So you definitely have a very strong visual, bold setting of the book. The rain is a huge sort of theme in the book. It's almost like a character. So yeah, very bold book to write and to read. And just to round that all off, 50 Words for Rain was an epic, sweeping, heart-rending story. It was a gripping historical fiction read that spans many, many decades and keeps you wanting to read more and more. With the changing backdrop of post-World War II, Lemmie definitely brings to us a lot of issues such as race, familiar traditions and duties, big life decisions, struggles, self-reflection, identity, loss, and grief, as well as finding hope. It is quite a little hopeful read as well. Right, so with all that, let's get into my song pick for 50 Words for Rain. And by the way, guys, if you are enjoying my book reviews, please subscribe. I need more followers. Spread the word. And also like my video. Show me some love, you know. And also have an Instagram and all of that. So, you know, feel free to follow me everywhere if you want. I'm very active on Instagram. That's my favorite social media. But anyway, back to the song pick for 50 Words for Rain. So for this song, I love music. So I love pairing songs to books that I read, or books and songs, you know, the other way around, whichever. I just love music, so that's my thing. That's my thing. So for this book, I knew that I wanted a song that was quite emotional. I knew I wanted a song that felt quite classical, because classical music is a big theme in this story. And also I read somewhere that the author is a massive fan of classical music. So I knew that I wanted something almost acoustic-y, something melancholy, something atmospheric and moving. So yeah, so for my song pick for 50 Words for Rain, I chose the beautiful song by the incredible Emile Sande called Clown. You probably know it because it's like a big song, very heart-rending song. And I feel like this song represents Nori as well. Nori and the way that she was sort of struggling so much in this book, and the lack of respect that she gets in this book by people that surround her. And yeah, it just felt right. It felt like it fit the story. And I hope you guys have heard this song. I'm gonna link a video for it because it's such a beautiful song. And that is it for me. Thank you so much. I will post a link if you want to buy this book. It's a really beautiful book if you love epic stories. Have an awesome week.